Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Cut to the Chase Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Chase Younts. Alongside me, Brady King. Brady, we've got the SEC football preview today. We did the Big Ten a couple of days before. SEC here. It's the two heavyweight conferences in college football at the moment. How excited are you to look at this one?
Oh, yeah, very excited. I mean, obviously, every year there's some really good games that come out of the SEC. Big storylines, always got teams competing for the Natty. And this year is going to be really, really exciting. There's a lot of good storylines in this conference. Like you said, obviously there's a clear Big Two in college football. And, most of the big games come from those two conferences. And nonetheless, that's going to happen again this year. It's just a really exciting one. And I'm ready to be rocking and rolling because, we're getting close. We're really getting there. Like you can smell it. It's actually it's in sight. So.
It really is. I mean, like week 0, I mean, we are nearly single digits away from week 0. And then from week 1, we're just about 2.5 weeks out. We're so close to it, man. I mean, it is in striking distance, to say the least. Looking at some of the biggest storylines going into this SEC season, I think the main one that comes atop is that Texas is now confirmed the AP preseason #1 team in the nation, and they're going to be led by Arch Manning. They're probably going to get 2 full years of Arch Manning being the starting quarterback, presumably after hearing some stuff that the Manning family has said, especially, his grandfather and Archie Manning. Man, what's the expectations for Arch this year, and what are we looking at for Texas?
Yeah, so I would say the expectations for Arch this year is to be an upgrade from Quinn Ewers. And obviously Quinn Ewers was a really good college quarterback. I mean, I think his career gets a little bit underappreciated because of the fact that he was an all-world recruit. I mean, he was a generational high school prospect, whether people can change that in hindsight all they want, but he was a perfect rated prospect. He reclassified and was still the #1 prospect. I mean, this is he was a higher rated prospect than even Justin Fields and Trevor Lawrence were when they came out, and obviously everyone knew that storyline. So after a guy comes in and leads Texas to the Final Four in 2 straight years, he brought Texas back. He really did, and he was a good QB. But by the way that all the coaches have hyped Arch up, obviously Quinn wasn't welcome back at Texas this year. If he would have stayed in college, he was hitting the portal. He'd be with the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. So. Arch has to be better than Quinn, and I do think that's very possible because Arch he's a big kid. I mean, that dude, he's a physical runner, but he also has speed. He's taking it the distance. He can move. He's not easy to bring down in the pocket. The main thing for him is obviously experience. It's not really there. I mean, he came in a few games. He started a couple games. Starting against Mississippi State is like starting against Kent State. I mean, that I don't take much out of that. And from what I've seen from Arch, he's going to have to be better. I mean, I think he has a lot of expectations for this year. I mean, I would say the majority of people expect him to possibly contend to be the best quarterback in the country. And I think it's very possible. I mean, I think he's a stud, though I'm not quite as high on him as other people are going into the year, due to the fact of experience. Not a lot of people jump into a situation like this and come out and just light the world on fire. But he has the tools to do that. Yeah,
I mean, one of those people that's really, really, really on board with Arch Manning is Paul Feinbaum. He's an interesting insider as that is. And again, I'm not going to go into much detail on that. You know where to find him. But yeah. The thing is, man, I mean, you're looking at Texas. They're trying to reload from last year, just like a couple of these teams. The team they played in Ohio State, and obviously we talked about that matchup on the Big Ten show. I mean, we probably won't touch as much on that on this show, maybe more on the Texas perspective of things. But think about it. We'll just go right in right now. Arch has played he started 3 games for Texas, and like you mentioned, I mean, it was against 2 bottom of the barrel teams that aren't even in the group of 5, and then you had a game against Mississippi State at home. When I was watching Arch's first start on September the 14th, I was sitting back at a restaurant And, I was just, enjoying a piece of pizza, drinking a beer. And the next thing you know, I see a Manning run 65 yards for a touchdown. And I'm like, hold on a second. This ain't right. Like this don't happen all the time. This never happens actually. But that's when it caught me off guard for a second. I'm like, okay, this dude's a little bit different. I'm not saying that he's obviously like, the greatest thing since sliced bread. But at the same time, like, you're obviously fascinated by it because you look, he's not the typical Manning at that rate. There's only been 3 other Mannings before him. He's got more of the stuff like his grandpa than he does, the actual, his uncles that are playing in the NFL. But then again, look, he's going to get compared to them all the time because of his last name and everything else. Yep. And expectations for him, they're so high, they're so lofty. There's a balance of this. Let the kid go out there and play and make a name for himself. But when you're playing for the number 1 team in the nation right now, and you have to go into the number 3 team in the nation who just won the national championship that you lost to about 7 months ago, your season ended against them and now it starts against them. Look, you got to go out there and you got to show out in front of the entire nation. That is a tall task right there. So, it's a balance of, can give the kid a chance, but I mean that is going to be a very big time ask for Arch Manning to go on the road and win a game in Columbus to start the season off, Brady.
Oh yeah, I mean it couldn't get any harder. It's one of the hardest. See, since we have the Ohio State perspective of things, for me personally, he's not in my top 5 worries of that game in terms of like Ohio State losing. And that's because of the fact that if he comes in and lights the world on fire, give him the Heisman because he's going to have an unbelievable year. I mean, because that like you said, it's a very ridiculously hard first game as the true starter of your team. And he's going to be tested. And obviously there's going to be he's going to have to stand against some pressure. He's going to have to make some difficult throws because the windows are going to be tight. That defense is going to be flying around. One of the more, maybe the most athletic defense in the country. So it's going to be difficult. And I hope he plays terrible. But we'll see what happens.
I mean, yeah, it's going to be a hell of a game. And obviously we can't talk – we can talk so much about this game. And once we get into game week, it's going to be big. It's going to be a little bit different is all I'm going to say because, like there's some stuff that's going on that week that I have to take care of business on a Thursday, and then we go to Saturday. So we'll get you guys that pure Ohio State, Texas preview earlier on in the week. It's going to be fun. But
and we're always like Thursday is always one of our busiest days.
Oh, it always is, man. I mean, for many reasons beyond the cameraman, it's always a fun one. But obviously, we talked about that being the biggest matchup and everything else that's non-conference with Big Ten and SEC. But you go down the list, Clemson and LSU. That's a big time one. That's going to be a Saturday night game on ABC. I mean, we can talk about that one. I mean, you're looking at Garrett Nussmeier, who's coming back and trying to be one of the top quarterbacks that gets selected out of this draft. And then you got Cade Klubnik, who's trying to make a name for himself after he had a really good season in 2024 and built on top of that. 2 guys that, trying to look to be future gunslingers of the National Football League.
Yeah. This is an intriguing game. I mean, you got there's storylines all over the place. You got Death Valley versus Death Valley. You've got LSU not winning their first game in like 6 years. You've got Cade Klubnik and Garrett Nussmeier being probably the 2 most proven passers coming into the year because there's not that many this year. I would say those are probably the most 2 proven passers, and in terms of just pure statistics and competition mixture. And all those storylines, also it being just a great game. Tigers, all this stuff.
Yeah. This
is a fun game. And one guy that I guess proved me wrong last year was Cade Klubnik. I was very high on him out of high school. I thought he was a winner. I thought he played really hard. I didn't think he was that talented per se. It was like just a downfield passer. I didn't think he was ever going to be like a top 10 pick, which now he's putting himself in a position to where he has to play great, but he's been in that preseason discussion. And last year, he had a much, much better year than he had the year before, where he wasn't good. He wasn't. It was interesting to see that. I will say one thing I'll say about Klubnik, I got to see it against a good team because he played fairly well against Texas. However, I need to see him play a complete game against a good team because I've seen him struggle against teams like Kentucky and Notre Dame and SMU. I didn't think he played that great in the ACC championship. He had a couple busted coverage touchdown throws, but this is a big test. And LSU's defense may be trash. We'll see. It has been a lot. But Nussmeier, to me, is the more proven passer. I've known he could throw the ball. He could be a gunslinger since the Elite 11 because he came out there. I was watching. It was COVID. I watched everyone throw at their pro day on YouTube. And he was one of the top 3 most consistent and just, gunslingers. We just watched him rip it. And he sat behind Jaden Daniels, which a lot of people wouldn't do. I wondered why he was doing it because I thought he was a gifted player. Started last year, and every time I watched them play, I was impressed with him. Now he lost some games, but it wasn't really on him. Like I said, the defense really fell apart against Alabama and other teams. But he threw a strike against Ole Miss to take the lead. It was like a mix between a deep crosser and a post, I believe.
Yeah.
But he had a safety collapsing, and the corner was right on his hip, and he just ripped the ball right in between the corner and the safety in a window for a touchdown.
Yeah.
I think Nussmeier, going into the season, is the best QB I've seen on tape.
Okay.
However, I'm not necessarily saying I think he'll be this year's best QB, just coming into the year right now. I like him better than Klubnik.
There's always somebody that comes onto the scene and that we are not expecting. It could be somewhere later on down the list in 7, 8, 9. It could be someone that's not even on the list or radar right now that just always makes that jump. Yeah. And, always grabs our attention. There's one more game that, a non-conference that really draws my attention. And this is going into week 3, but you've got the return game for A&M and Notre Dame. They play each other on Saturday, September 13th. That game's at 7:30 p.m. on NBC and Peacock. Our good friends Noah Eagle and Todd Blackledge will be on the call for that one. They played a pretty tight game to start off the season last year in College Station, and now you got Marcus Freeman, who, to be completely honest with you, hasn't been great in those early season games, especially in South Bend. They have lost a home game every single year in September that he's been the head coach.
Yeah. Yeah, no, they have. I mean, there's some people have said some things like this offseason and stuff like, oh, like Marcus Freeman, like he's a top 3 coach, blah, blah, blah. It's like, he's done a good job, but there's been some big time struggles. I mean, he's lost some inexcusable games. Marshall, he's lost to 2 group of 5 teams. Yeah. I mean, that's unacceptable. However, that Texas A&M win to kick off the season last year was kind of a tone setter until the hiccup. But again, that's a big one. And I believe it's at Notre Dame. So, they'll have the crowd and all that. And Notre Dame does not know who their quarterback is yet. That's a real QB battle. That's Kenny Mickney and C.J. Carr, grandson of Lloyd Carr.
Interesting.
Spun to the Wolverines during his recruitment to commit to the Fighting Irish. Was quite funny. But I would say Carr's the favorite. I'm gonna imagine he's the quarterback. If it changes, the same things apply. I'm sure they'll pick the guy they'll pick the best quarterback more than likely.
I just got to ask, man. I mean, obviously Notre Dame has a conference, so we're not just gonna give you a Notre Dame Fighting Irish preview. All right, but again, these guys just came off of, being the runner-ups in the country and stuff. But, even just looking at Mike Elko's squad, they almost made the SEC championship game last year. There was like 6 teams that almost made the title game, because of how close it was going down. I mean, what do we expect from him in year 2 with A&M?
Yeah, I think they're probably a top 25 team coming into the year. Obviously they're ranked, but I mean, like just in general, I do think – in most years, I wouldn't say that. A lot of the years, I think Texas A&M gets ranked when they don't deserve it heading into the year, and it ends up being true. This year, I think Mike Elko is a really good defensive-minded coach. I've always liked the way his teams play defense, even going back to his time at Duke. And they have a nice, sound team. They don't have the talent per se that they've had in the past. Like back in the 2022 recruiting class, they signed the highest rated recruiting class of all time. They got like 5-star D linemen.
Yeah.
They had so many guys, and all of them practically transferred. I mean, it was insane. And
didn't go over well.
And now that some of Mike Elko's guys are starting to, take over and be the primary, the bulk of that squad. And they also have Marcel Reed coming back, the quarterback that I think was a good player. I think he was much better than Connor Weigman. And I think towards the end of the year, you saw Texas A&M play some solid games. And even at even that Notre Dame game, they hung in there with Notre Dame pretty well last year. Even though it was at home and earlier in the season before Notre Dame found their identity, not the easiest thing to do. I mean, so I do think Texas A&M could have a solid year.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what they do, especially with them always having that sort of hype going into a season and going into year 2 under Mike Elko. Look at some conference games that you're really keeping your eyes on. What's one that really jumps out on the page to you?
So a conference, the first one that jumps out is the Alabama-Georgia game.
Yeah,
that's big. I mean, but Georgia's got it at home. Last year, Georgia's schedule was pretty brutal. Because of the road games they had to play. But now they've got Bama at home, a team they lost, the team that they have been bad against, straight up. I mean, Alabama just beats Georgia. They just do. It's kind of like Ohio State and Notre Dame has been. It's been Bama has beaten Georgia almost every time they've played except for the national championship in 2021. But this is huge because getting Bama at home, I don't think they've had Bama at home since 2015.
Yeah, it's been a minute.
That's back when Derrick Henry was playing and Georgia had Mark Richt. And Georgia wasn't even Georgia back then. Let's be real. They weren't that good.
It's wild.
To see Ty Simpson will win the job for Bama. And he is – I'm going to imagine he'll have a better year throwing the ball than Jalen Milroe had. So guys like Ryan Williams and Jeremy Bernard are going to be able to produce, and they're going to turn into more of a passing team than they've been on offense. However, they do apparently have 3 offensive linemen that can bench press 500 pounds. I mean, those dudes are tanks on the Alabama O-line. Caden Proctor is one of the more freakish human beings I've ever seen in my entire life.
Man.
So Bama's offense will be rolling. But Georgia, they're always going to have talent. I mean, they have a top 3 composite roster in college football. There's one area I'm super worried about, and that's quarterback. I don't think Gunnar Stockton's good at all. I'm going to be straight up.
He does. Am I wrong? But does he look like he should be giving us 401k advice?
He absolutely does. I mean, this dude, his hairline's receding. He looks like he's 40. I mean,
yeah,
it's pretty nuts how he's a college kid, and he's normal. Like he's not even a fifth year. He's a senior. He's class of 2022 high school.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
I refuse to believe that.
Yeah, I mean, I could name out some of the people he's the same age as, but I'm not going to waste anyone's time.
Oh my gosh, yeah, that's gonna hurt. That's gonna hurt a lot.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
But Stockton, man, I mean, I'm gonna be straight up. This guy's not good. Like this dude almost gave the game to he kind of had to protect the lead. They had a 1-score lead when he came in against Texas in the SEC championship, which they did have Texas's number, and he was able to protect the lead. But he threw the ball straight to Jahdae Barron towards the end of the game. What is he doing? And even when he's not, like, they let Notre Dame curb stomp them. And it's like Notre Dame had a good defense, but it's like, come on, dude, you got to be able to move the ball a little bit on these guys. Like, he just can't. Yeah. He just looks like he's taking – there's so much effort into throwing the ball for him. And whenever I see that, I'm like, this guy, it's a sign of a QB not being very good.
Yeah, I mean, he was in that game against Notre Dame, was 20 for 32, 234, touchdown, no interceptions, got sacked 4 times, had 10 carries for negative 23 yards. Here's a game that actually interests me a lot. I think it's just because of the history factor in this. It's Florida and Texas. All right. So they play each other on Saturday, October the 4th. They play in Gainesville in the Swamp. That game could be anywhere from 3:30 to 8 p.m. It could be in that flex window earlier in the season to the week after Bama and Georgia. These two teams have played each other 4 times in their history. One of those times being last year where Texas ended up winning 49-17 in the middle of November. The last time and the only time that Texas traveled to the Swamp was on December 7th of 1940.
Wow.
It has been 85 years since that has occurred. And the record that Texas has against them is 3-0-1 all time. The first time they met, October 25th of 1924. So just over 100 years ago, they tied 7-7 in Austin, Texas. So I'm intrigued to see something that we haven't seen in pretty much in nearly a century,
right,
being, Texas traveling into the Swamp. Florida earlier in the season, I don't know what they're going to be. DJ Lagway, that'll be a pretty fun matchup to see with him versus Arch Manning. I'm excited to see what these two guys got going on. I think that game, I think that game could definitely see itself being escorted into that night window where Fowler and Herbstreit are calling it. So, I hope it gets to the point where, with it being such an earlier season game where if Florida's season goes off the rails, it's not going to have gone so far off the rails that early in the season. In Texas, obviously holding such a pretty big target on their back, being the number 1 team in the nation at the moment. So something's captivating about that matchup. I don't know what it is. I think it's the history. I think it's the colors. I think it's the quarterbacks, the coaches, the schematics of this entire thing. I'm just intrigued to see how Arch is going to play once again on the road in a tough environment. This time could be at night. I'm intrigued by it.
Yeah, this is an interesting game, especially with the hype that DJ Lagway has been receiving this offseason as well.
A lot.
These are probably the 2 biggest hypothetical quarterbacks this offseason of these guys going to play. You know what I mean? Like 2 guys that haven't actually done much yet, but a lot of people could see it happening. I am one of those people. I could see DJ Lagway lighting up college football. He, big arm, can make a lot of throws. He can move too. He can run, kind of like Arch. They have a fairly similar play style. And so I'm excited to see him against Texas. A really tough test for him, even being at home. And again, like Arch going back on the road in another tough environment. It should be interesting. Florida, it's tough to tell with them. It's tough to tell if they're going to be good or not this year. I really don't know. I would lean towards they'll eventually fall off the rails, but hopefully at that, I don't think they will have at that point. So I do think that this will be a pretty big matchup. Florida's probably going to be ranked a little bit higher than they should, so it's going to even be like higher, more highly regarded of a matchup than you think. So, this will be a fun game to watch at presumably night, week 3, right?
Yeah, and it'll be week 6.
It's week 6.
Yeah, week 6. It'll be October the 4th. So yeah, it'll be a fun one regardless. I'll say that. But and I think another game that kind of goes under the radar, which will be Saturday, October 25th, it actually involves Alabama. And they go to take on South Carolina and LaNorris Sellers in a game that could be anywhere from 3:30 to 8 o'clock p.m. I don't know. Bama doesn't really have the greatest track record playing in Columbia. And I would say that meaning not like, wins and losses, but those games can get kind of tight there, especially with this new Bama team that with no Nick Saban,
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. And LaNorris Sellers is the other quarterback that we haven't talked about yet, really, that could be – I think he's better than Cade Klubnik overall. Like, I think he's the best quarterback in South Carolina. I think he's super – I think he's what people think Jalen Milroe is. Like, people think Jalen Milroe is like this dual-threat quarterback, like, I think that's what LaNorris Sellers is. I think he's his throwing motion is pretty. He can throw the ball down the field, especially when he needs to, but he's also a freak athlete. That dude can make plays. I do think this might be his last year of college football. Could be a top 10, top 5 pick if everything goes smoothly. and I definitely think he could play he could have a really good season. And obviously they're going to probably try not to run him too much because you don't want to get him injured. If so, you will have Aaron Noland coming in to lead the charge.
That's true.
And so it's going to be interesting to see this game for sure. I mean, last year, what a game it was with Alabama and South Carolina. I went down to the wire, and Alabama was barely able to squeak by. I mean, if South Carolina won that game, they would have been in the college football playoff probably.
Yeah, it's crazy to think.
Yeah,
yeah,
most definitely.
It's crazy to think. And then, we're not going to touch much on this, but I mean, as we get later on in the season, South Carolina and Clemson play each other. Kate Klubnik versus LaNorris Sellers on Saturday, November 29th. So that's down the road, but man, that could be a really fun one with some quarterbacks that are possibly playing for for picks in the draft and playoff spots. So that'll be fun. Give me a couple guys that you're watching out for that could break out here in the Southeastern Football Conference.
Yeah. So first up, John Mateer, quarterback at Oklahoma, had a breakout year last year. However, he didn't really get any spotlight due to the fact that he wasn't playing in a conference. He's playing for Washington State. Yeah. So, but this was a big-time get. This was the best available quarterback in the transfer portal in my eyes in terms of just proven starter. And I think he could be a really good quarterback this year in the SEC. I think it's going to be fun to watch him. He's got a fun game. He's got a fun game coming up against Michigan early on in the season. Mm-hmm. He'll be able to prove he belongs. And obviously in the Red River, he's going to be able to be on the national spotlight. So John Mateer finally has the chance to get national spotlight. I do think he'll make the most of it. I do think he'll end up being one of the better quarterbacks in college football this year. And then secondly, I'm really big on this guy, Cam Coleman, 6'5" wide receiver for Auburn. This guy was a monster recruit. Top 5 overall player in the country in the class of 2024. It was probably the best high school receiver class of all time. You had 3 receivers in the top 5 players. You had Jeremiah Smith, Ryan Williams, and Cam Coleman. I do think Cam Coleman is kind of on that Ryan Williams level in terms of talent. I think he will be one of the top receivers in college football. He can move. I mean, this dude can run this guy can get vertical fast. And being 6'5", he has crazy ball skills. I think if Auburn can throw the ball and get him looks, I think he'll be able to shine, and I think he'll end up being, I'll say it right now, a top 3 receiver, along with the other 2 guys I just named. I think those are your 3 best receivers in the country. And he had 8 touchdowns as a freshman with Peyton Thorne throwing the ball, very mid quarterback. Jackson Arnold struggled, but he does have a big arm, so maybe him just giving him a chance will get Cam Coleman's numbers better this year. But just watch out for Cam Coleman. And then those are the main 2 guys I got.
All right, Peyton Thorne, Bengal quarterback right now, believe it or not. But
really?
Okay, yeah, he's on the roster, so that's one thing he's on the roster. That's all I'll say on that. But okay, let's think about this SEC championship game. Do we see the 2 teams that are up on this SEC champion poll, which are Texas and Georgia again? Do they rematch, or do we have a different matchup and champion this year?
So I do think we have a different matchup this year.
Okay.
And I do think we have a different champion because I think last year's champion is going to barely miss this game. I don't think Georgia's going to be in this conference championship. I do think Bama will get into this. We'll get to the conference championship this year. I think they'll have a much better season than last year. I think they'll play the Longhorns. Give me Texas to win the SEC championship in their second year there. I just think their roster is so loaded. I think they're the best overall roster in the SEC, hence why they're ranked number 1 right now. And I think Arch, especially after – I think he'll have a really, really good year, and he'll have to make a decision. Obviously, they've kind of told us what this decision will likely be, and that is to return for his senior season. But I think he'll be one of the better quarterbacks in college football this year, and I think Texas will get it done against Bama in probably a pretty good game in the SEC title game.
I'm going to have to agree with you on everything there. I think Texas is going to have their year to win the SEC, and I think Bama is going to, really find themselves in a better spot this year and play in this conference championship game, but Texas ultimately comes out on top. So that's that, but before we get on out of here, how many teams from the SEC make the college football playoff, Brady?
Yeah, I think we're gonna have 3 SEC teams get in this thing. I think you got the Alabama Crimson Tide, the Texas Longhorns, and the Georgia Bulldogs. All going to make this conference championship. Georgia, just such a stout team. They're so consistent. I just can't really pick against them. I think they'll be a lower seed than you would expect, but they're still going to get in this thing. Texas and Alabama are self-explanatory. They're in the conference championship. And then I think the team – LSU, I do think is going to miss the playoff again. I don't trust their defense. I really don't. And I do think they're going to lose to Clemson. I do think they're going to lose to Bama and then drop a miscellaneous game to knock them out of this thing. And then Ole Miss, I don't see it. I don't like them that much this year. South Carolina, great quarterback, not that good of a roster. They got a couple good players, but I think they'll have a worse year than last year. And then all the other teams that could be in contention. Florida, they'll lose 5 games. A&M, walking 8-4, 7-5 team. I just don't trust them enough yet. If they prove me wrong this year, maybe I'll start predicting them. But those are my playoff picks for the SEC. I think those teams are solidly in.
So we've got Brady having 4 Big Ten teams: Ohio State, Penn State, Oregon, and Illinois. And then these 3 teams in the SEC: Texas, Georgia, and Alabama. So 7 of the 12 teams have been picked by Brady. And we'll have some more conference previews coming up on these coming up episodes. The Big 12, the ACC, maybe a bit of a group of 5 roundup. College football is right around the corner, guys. You can smell it. You can see it. You can almost grab it. It's right there. That being said, Chase Younts, Brady King. We'll see you guys next time here on the Cut to the Chase Sports Podcast.